Hi, welcome to the second lesson on our Node.js mongodb NodeCommerce application. Here, as we mentioned in the part 1, that we are going to be looking at a Node application that will use mongodb as database to create an API that is an e-commerce application. So here we are going to start with the project. As we have done in the first lesson, we have created our project directory, which is NodeCommerce folder. In Git, we have set our Git ignore and the readme. The next thing is for us to create our project. In Node, how do we create projects? The first thing you do right here is to open your terminal. If you are using command prompt, you can use your command prompt. But if you are using Visual Studio Code, then you open your terminal inside your Visual Studio Code. You can see that I'm pointing into the NodeCommerce directory. So here there are different ways to create a Node project. The first method that I'm going to discuss is by typing init when we have Node, you have an application called npm. And what does npm do? What npm does is that it creates, you can use it to install any package or libraries into your application that you want to use. So if I want to check whether I have npm or not, I will type npm in my command prompt, and then it's telling me that I have npm version 10.7.0, so which means I have npm. Now I'll go back to my project. I can do the same thing here. I will type npm init. npm init will walk us through series of steps to create a package.js in our application. But we can as well do npm-y. This will silently create our project without asking us any question. This will just set the default values for everything in the project. But let it walk us through. I want it to show us how to do all this so that we can see what each parameter represents in the project. So I'm going to press enter, npm init. So this will look at what we are doing inside this NodeCommerce folder. See, it's asking me that what is the project name. Is it NodeCommerce? I will just press enter. I'm not changing the project name. What version? I will say version 2.0.1. I'm not going by version 1. If you like, you can say version 1. Description. So I will say an eCommerce API application. That is the description, though it is optional. If you did not put anything, it will work. You now say, what's your entry point? Is it index.js? If you are okay with it, fine, you press enter. But if you want to change it maybe to app.js, then you press enter. Then it will now ask you, what's your text command? Nothing. Git repository, no for now. Keywords, I can say API, eCommerce. Depends on how you want it. You can as well make it empty. And who is the author? I will put Lawal, and then license. Say, is this okay? Yes, press enter. Then it has created our package.json. So we're going to see all those things that we specify now. You can see the name of the project, NodeCommerce, the version 2.0.1, the description, the main, which is the entry point, the script, and then the keyword, and which is API and e-commerce, the author, and the license. So after we have set all this, the next thing is to install dependencies for this project. In this project, we are going to be needing some dependencies because this is an API. The first thing we are going to need is that our application will comprise of some items. For instance, in an e-commerce web application like this, you are going to have items, or you call it products. Then you are going to have users that will interact with the product, that will be entering products. They will log in and enter products. Then you are going to have, after the user, you are going to have carts, you are going to have order, and so on and so forth. But for now, what are the dependencies that are going to be required for this application? Don't forget, I said we are using dependencies, we are using Express. Express is a Node framework for building web applications and API. We are going to need bcrypt.js. So we'll be authenticating users in our application. So they will need password to sign in, and we'll be storing this password in our database. So it is not advisable to store password in a plain text. So the application will be vulnerable. So Bricky will provide us with a password hashing function which we can use before saving this password in our database. The next one is a JSON web token. We're using JSON web token to generate authentication tokens to validate users. We need Mongoose. Mongoose is an object data modeling library for MongoDB and Node.js. It manages relationship between data, provides schema validation, and is used to translate between objects in code and the representation of those objects in MongoDB. We're going to be creating objects, and we use MongoDB. Mongoose will translate the object in our code into MongoDB. Then we are going to need .env. .env will be used to store the application credentials in an hidden file, so that we can be calling it from the hidden file and access some sensitive information about the application that we are not meant to be shared in the code or to be seen by the public. Then we are going to need nodemon to automatically restart the server. Is to keep our server running by restarting it anytime changes are detected in our files. How do we install all these dependencies? We are going to make use of the terminal by using npm. So I'm going to type npm install. So we're going to type all the dependencies one by one and separate them with a space. So I will put express space. If we like, we can be installing them one by one by typing npm install express. When that is done, we type another one and put the package name. That's how we install. But npm also allows that we install multiple packages at a time. So I'm going to do the bcrypt. bcrypt.js mongoose json web token .env. Press enter, then it will install the packages for us. Let's see. Alright, it has installed all the packages. If you look at our package.json now, you'll see that all these are now referenced in our package.json. Now we have dependencies, bcrypt, .NET, Express, JSON Web Token, Mongoose. Let me check, is there anyone missing? Then NodeMon. We've not installed our NodeMon. So for us to install the NodeMon, we are going to do the same thing. npm install NodeMon. Okay. npm install NodeMon. Then NodeMon is installed. Alright. Now that we have installed all the dependencies, let us go ahead and create our components of the application. Now the first thing I want us to take note of is the setting up of the environment variables and the mongoose. To connect to a database in MongoDB, the connection is localhost, the localhost, let's say this e-commerce website for instance, e-commerce database. You can see we have it localhost column 27017 slash the name of the database. That is how we connect to database in MongoDB. So in this case, we are going to create our .env file to set up the MongoDB and every other environment variable. So then I'm going to come here, right click on our project folder, or here new file, I will call it .env, and press enter. So in this case, I'm going to enter my MongoDB URL. I'll call it Mongo, type it in capital letter, MongoDB _ URL is equal to, then in quotes. So our connection will be mongodb colon / you can say local host, still coming back to that local host, column 27017, then slash, what do we call our database? NodeCommerce. That's for our database connection. Now, the next thing we are supposed to do is that when we were creating the project, the system asks us where is the starting point of this project, and we mention it to it that it is app.js. So we are going to create the app.js because it is the starting point of the application. So I'm going to go to the folder here, the Node project folder, click on new file here, and I will call it app.js, enter. So which is the starting point of the application. Now in our package.json, we make it to be aware of that inside the scripts. I'm going to come here and put comma, then we say start is what? Node. If you want to start this project, you have to type node, then the name of the file where your node is. But in this case, my app.js is here directly, so I will put it there that you have to start app.js. That is the starting, how to start the application. Now the next thing for us is to go into the start, the app.js, the starting point. What do we do here? We are going to import the express that we've created earlier. I'm going to constant, let's create object of the express, constant express is equal to require express, then after that require express, I'm going to create the object of that express, say constant app is equal to express. Then we can now be using the app to do whatever we want to do. But let's say I want to, at the beginning of this project, whenever they go to the local host, I want it to display an HTML page that will welcome them into this project before they begin to access the API. So in that case, I'm going to create a public folder. Here is a folder, we call it public. Remember, it's a folder, so inside it I'm going to create a new file and call it index.html. So what will be inside this index.html? I'll go to just go to Bootstrap and copy a page. Let's go to Bootstrap. Then I'm going to look for under Bootstrap, we go to getbootstrap.com and then introduction. We'll see some sample under this getting started with Bootstrap. Then we'll see here where they reference Bootstrap. I'm going to copy this, put it inside the index.html. Now we're going to access the file later on. Okay, so let's continue with our app.js. At least let's bring up something. We have created the object of the express by importing the express and created the object of it. Then we can now go on and say app.listening. We are going to create a port, so I'm going to come here, create a port, say constant port equal to 3000 or maybe 4000. So here our app will listening as the port number, comma, you can see it also says port number, the host name, string, and the callback. So what's going to be our callback? We don't need to specify the host name. Let us create an arrow function. In case you don't know arrow function, you may need to look at one of our tutorials, but basically this is an arrow function. An arrow function is an anonymous function which can be used to instantiate or initiate any value. So here this is a function, and what will the function do? The function will only just tell us that we have connected to, we have started our application, console.log. So I will say server listening on port, then comma, the port we have specified, or may not be comma, let's use pause. Okay, so now how do we start our application? We come into our command prompt and type npm start. We can see it saying server listening on port 4000. That is what we have done. So that is the starting point of our application. Now how do we now load the index.html? Like I said the other time, for Bootstrap we have copied this and then we put it inside the index.html. So here let us say welcome to NodeCommerce API. That's what we are putting there. We save, then come back here into our app.js. We're going to import paths, constant paths, because we want to access a path now. So require an inbuilt module called path. So this path is what we are going to use to say constant. Let's create a public directory, public directory is equal to path dot join, like joining this particular path we have with a directory name, comma, that we'll be looking for dot slash, that is, we are going back out of this, but since our app is not outside, we can just say dot slash public folder. So this is our public directory. Then we can now tell the app that whenever anybody loads our app, that is app.get slash means when they type localhost 4000, because our app is sitting on port 4000, comma, then what do? Set the request and then response with an arrow function that will do what? The response will send file, response or send file, because we want to open a file, which is what? Index.html. Index.html. Now we need to tell the application to use this public directory so that it will open the file app.use express.static, that is, the file we want to serve is a static file that is stored inside our public directory. So let us try this out to see what will happen. If we go to our browser now and type localhost 4000, okay, we get an error that says it cannot get. Let us see what is the cause of this. Okay, so I think we need to stop our server and start it again. So this is what happens when you are not using NodeMon. If I restart it, then I can go back to my browser and refresh, then it will work. You can see welcome to NodeCommerce API. So this is how we go about it, and this is what will take us to the place where we have to set up our dev rather than using the production start. So here I'm going to create a dev. Let me see. I think I need to do this dev column. Then what we want to do at this point, what we want to do is to use NodeMon, then app.js. That's it. So rather than using this, I'm going to stop this now and say npm dev. Okay, so npm run dev. You can see now that NodeMon is the one that is now executing the script, and running our server at 4000. And if you look at it, nothing breaks. Everything is still working perfectly. So that is that on the project setup. In our next lesson, we're going to be looking at how we connect into a database. But before we do that, let us do a recap of what we have done. We started by creating our project by typing npm init. It created the package.json for us by specifying all this. We install dependencies, which are all what we are seeing here. The dependencies: bcrypt.environment, express, JSON web token, mongoose, nodemon. Afterwards, we move on to creating the starting point of our application, which is the main app.js. The app.js was created, so we imported the express that we installed, and then we instantiate the express by creating an object of it and then listing on ports that we specify here. Later on, we serve a static file by creating a directory by starting with the path, constant path. We import path. It's an inbuilt package where we specify our project public folder, which we have created here, public folder, and then we use that as a static directory with express, and then we created a route that whenever they load this application on port 4000, it should send file what? It should load the file index.html. We copy bootstrap and put inside the HTML index page, so that whenever they load the file, it's going to serve the content of the bootstrap. We have also created the .environment, but we have not used it. We are going to use it in the next lesson. Thank you.